Welcome to this short presentation offered by the Capital Area Council of Churches. Early last year, we worked with several churches to put together a webinar titled Creating Dementia Friendly Congregations. The keynote speaker was a retired Presbyterian pastor who was living with Alzheimer's disease, and she's spoken nationally and internationally to legislative bodies. We had over 100 people participate in that webinar. As a follow-up to that program, in September, we offered a service geared primarily for individuals living with Alzheimer's or the dementia and their care partners. In this program, we want to take you behind the scenes to some of the planning that went into that service. Our hope is that the information you hear today will help other churches plan similar services. If you were not at the service itself and have not seen a recording of that service, we encourage you on the website of the Capital Area Council of Churches, view that recording, and then come back to this presentation. Before we hear from our panelists, just want to say, for me, the key to successful service was inviting the right partners to be part of the planning team. We began by inviting professionals, an individual from the Alzheimer's Association, experts in Alzheimer's and other dementia, also the people from the Albany Guardian Society, who specialize in senior issues. We included also 3 individuals who are living with Alzheimer's. They not only helped plan the service, 2 of them were leaders and participants in the service. And then we involved advocates, people who feel passionate about reaching out to individuals who are some way impacted with Alzheimer's disease. As we go through the program, I want to address some questions to the people to my left and right, and they will share with you their perspective and their role they played in the planning. So we'll begin with Bruce France. You are the Executive Director of the Capital Area Council of Churches. Can you share with us how doing programs like the webinar, the service, how does that fit in with the mission and ministry of the Council of Churches?
Bill, I would be thrilled to. We're an ecumenical organization. We have approximately 90 member churches in Albany and southern Rensselaer County, and over a variety of different denominations, both Protestant and the Roman Catholic Church. And when you think of that number of churches, there's always a real opportunity for the churches to get together and do things that they cannot do on their own. And that's really why the Capital Area Council of Churches was formed in 1941. And this is obviously a wonderful example of how churches can get together. Because when you think of it, Bill, most churches have a relatively small percentage that may have some kind of dementia that needs to be addressed. So for the church to take a lot of effort on their own to do something in particular, that's a challenge for them. But when we get a bunch of churches together, it's very easy to be done. And that's really what the Capital Area Council of Churches does. That's where we shined. And that's exactly what we did in this instance, is we brought resources together that's going to be the benefit to all of our member churches and others beyond Albany and southern Rensselaer County.
Thank you, Bruce. Now, you were at the service. Was there anything in particular that stood out for you or touched you or caught your attention?
Well, I got to say, the first thing that thrilled me was the fact that we had over 30 people who came, and it was put together on relatively short notice. And I thought that was very positive, and I was glad to see that kind of a turnout. The other thing was I loved the fact that the hymns were very familiar. I know that was intentional, but I love the great hymns that so many of our denominations have, and I've sung for years. So that was a really nice part of it. I thought the other piece that stood out to me, like our presentation originally, this service used people who are suffering from dementia. And I think that was a wonderful way to really pull the whole thing together. That it's not only done for those suffering from dementia, but it was some of the people in it suffer from dementia.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. You mentioned the music. We were fortunate to have a very gifted musician play the organ for us. Also, we located a hymnal created by people living with early stage Alzheimer's. And they put it together and said, these are the hymns we like to sing. It was created in England, but it worked well in our country as well. So, Gwen, you work for the Alzheimer's Association. You help represent them. Can you share with us a little bit about how the Alzheimer's Association was involved in planning this service?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. For those who are watching, the Alzheimer's Association is a voluntary health organization that is available nationwide. So if you are watching and you have not been connected to us, simply visit our website, alz.org, or call our 24/7 helpline, which is 800-272-3900. It was very important for us to have a seat at the table when planning the Dementia Friendly Service. First and foremost, just to bring a generalized awareness to some of the symptoms and challenges that individuals facing Alzheimer's disease and other dementias and their families may face. So, first and foremost, when planning the service, we wanted to take into account that many of those whom would be attending may have short-term memory or just general memory deficits. They may have language deficits. They may have challenges related to disorientation to time and place. They may have trouble organizing themselves. Furthermore, going beyond that, Alzheimer's disease and dementia in general can bring isolation to families who are facing it, particularly when dealing with depression or anxiety, social anxieties, or apathy. So in planning the dementia-friendly service, when we all have a general understanding of what families or individuals living with the disease might face, we really want to tailor the service so that we can bring people out of that, so that we can reduce the isolation that this disease brings. In conjunction to that, we are a leader in the capital region here in support and education for those facing the disease. So we offer programs and services for those living with Alzheimer's. So it was not difficult to find individuals who were diagnosed and living with the disease who were very excited about this and wanted to be a part of this.
Well, thank you, Gwen. You mentioned the people who are living with Alzheimer's disease. It was your organization that put us in touch with them. We had a retired Methodist pastor. We had another man who chose one of the readings and read it. Did it seem important to you, and why do you think it was important to involve people with a dementia diagnosis?
It was critical. There still is so much stigma that is associated with this disease, particularly in the early and as we get into more of the moderate stage, that individuals living with Alzheimer's disease and dementia, they are still productive human beings who can do many of the things that they used to do. So by having that lens of not only an individual who, is very connected with their faith community, even having retired pastors and ministers of that, but certainly to now bring the lens of living with a diagnosis such as Alzheimer's disease was incredibly important, not only so that they can address what would be most comfortable to them and welcoming to them, but also to get away from that stigma that, folks living with this disease can't do certain things or shouldn't do certain things when they certainly can.
Yep. And I would say, certainly, since I provided Karen with a ride back and forth, both she and David seemed to appreciate that they were treated with dignity and allowed to be trusted with a leadership role in the service.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're just terrific individuals, and having their insights and not only their experience, but kind of their life experience in their own faith communities was really important to bring to the table.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked Bruce. You were there at the service. Was there anything about the service that seemed special or caught your attention or memorable for you?
My favorite part of the service had to have been the overall theme that was joy. And that what really spoke to me was, as someone who, cares for individuals with Alzheimer's disease and works with those who are living with it, there is so much joy, that there is joy throughout all stages of the disease. And joy is such a universal message and language that we continue to speak to each other throughout the entire disease, and that we can find joy in all stages of the disease. So that was really special and meaningful, and I think it spoke to everyone in the room.
Thank you. I'll turn to Mary Muller now. Mary, you're the executive director of the Albany Guardian Society. When you learned we were planning the service, you actually asked to be involved. So my question for you is, why did you want to be involved, and how was the Guardian Society part of the planning process?
So thanks, Bill. Such a privilege to be here today. So Albany Guardian Society, it's a 171-year-old nonprofit foundation with a mission to improve the lives of older adults. So we're a mission-driven organization that is committed and determined to help older adults age in their communities and in their faith communities and among their peer group. So what was very special about this is we were involved in the Dementia Friendly webinar way back in the year and a half ago. So we hosted it, and we were really thrilled to be a leader in that as well. And so what Albany Guardian Society does is bring people together. We're conveners. And working with a group like this of dedicated, passionate professionals, it was really a pleasure to be a part of it. And having those with persons with Alzheimer's disease a part of the planning process also was really important. We offer 150 classes each year for older adults. And then as well as we participate in projects like this that are very near and dear to our hearts and near and dear to the caregivers and those that take care of their loved ones when there's a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease.
Thank you. And so I'll ask you again the same question I asked Bruce and Gwen, because you were there at the service. Was there anything about the service that either surprised you or seemed in some way special for you?
Yes. So I've been waiting for this question. So two things. First of all, I was really thrilled with the calm environment and a safe space for caregivers. So when you're caregiving for a loved one with Alzheimer's disease or dementia, it can be stressful and challenging. This was a safe place. People could bring their loved ones in, and they were listening to familiar hymns, and it was familiar noises and sounds, and it was calm, and it was a very loving, safe environment. I thought that was really what a wonderful support for caregivers and how they know they're not alone on their journey. Number one. Number two is I echo what my dear colleagues here say about having persons with Alzheimer's disease go right up in front and minister. They did the readings, and they were so active and vibrant, and they brought so much to the service. It was really thrilling, and it was comforting, and it was a real privilege to be a part of it.
Thank you, and thank you for your support. So Karen Poland is the pastor of Delmar Presbyterian. She and her congregation graciously hosted the service. Can you tell us a little, Karen, of what went into planning and preparing for the service?
Thank you, Bill. And let me echo, I'm very happy to be here. I was happy to be a part of the planning, and Delmar Presbyterian Church is a very mission-driven congregation, and they were very much happy, excited to offer our facilities and whatever help. So in a lot of ways, it was just like planning for a Sunday morning, in that you need people to turn on the lights, and deacons or other friendly people to be at the doors greeting folks. Probably the biggest challenge and moving pieces is the tech and organizing that, because we wanted to be able to live stream it to folks who weren't able to come, and also to run the soundboard. But we have great people at the church who were really invested in making sure it all happened. So it was a good experience for the church, and I think this is the type of worship experience that our churches should be doing. It's definitely ministering to the least of these in terms of the value that society places on folks. A lot of times those with any type of mental illness or disease are often marginalized, or there aren't programs that are geared just for them in a normal setting like a worship service. And I too felt, I felt the spirit. There was, I think Mary mentioned the calmness. I think that there was a real welcoming spirit. And so many diseases can be isolating. And I think that there is a lot of power and strength in being surrounded by people who know the struggle that you face, that you don't have to explain your silence or your hesitancy in choosing words, because everybody knows. It was not hard to find volunteers. People were very pleased to be a part of the service.
Well, thank you. And thank you you mentioned the tech support. They were invaluable to us. It made it easy to follow the service, having everything up front on a screen. So if people got lost in the booklet, they knew just by glancing up where they were. It was also reassuring to have your volunteers at the door. So if anyone needed to find a restroom or find their way back to the parking lot, there was somebody there to guide them. And certainly, you and I walked through the property ahead of time. It is very accessible to people with any handicaps. Right. There weren't a lot of stairs. There were no secret elevators. And you hosted reception afterwards. So thank you very much. Finally, the question I asked the others, because you were obviously there for the service as well, was there anything about it that either surprised you or touched you?
Well, I'm going to sound like a recording of the other three people who have shared, but it was so meaningful and powerful for those living every day with that disease to be not only a part of the planning around the table a few weeks earlier, but to be participants and leading in worship. That was the biggest thing that meant the most to me. And thank you for mentioning that about the church. I think some of the grand old churches are so wonderful to be in, but many of them are a labyrinth that are hard for adults with no deficits to navigate, and you feel like you should leave breadcrumbs to find your way out, not to mention all the stairs. And this is a little bit more modern building, and there are no stairs anywhere. There's a step to get up in the pulpit, but that's it. So we're glad to offer that. I also want to thank the Guardian group and the Alzheimer. You all made hosting it so easy and added to the joy of the occasion. And it was so nice to not have to worry about organizing the reception. It was just like magic. So that was delightful. And I know one of our elders who does a lot of the communication for our church coordinated with you, Bruce, and to make sure that we could support the promotion for the event. And I think it was a fantastic first area dementia-friendly service. And I hope that there are a lot of other churches that realize how meaningful this can be for people not only in their church, but maybe in the neighborhood around their churches.
Well, thank you. In fact, the purpose of this short video is to offer some tips for other either individual churches or groups of churches who want to do something similar. With that in mind, I'll give you all one more chance to share something. What advice do you have for other churches who want to plan a similar service? What one thing would you ask them to keep in mind?
Well, Bill, I think the most important thing I'd like to see come out of this is churches take advantage of these resources and find other resources, quite frankly, to be encouraged to put on a service. I would hope that it's not just up to us to do it, but that there might be the churches in Delmar getting together and putting on a service, and the churches in Latham and the churches in downtown Albany, so that it's spread out geographically and more people learn about how to do it. So that's what my great hope is. And we certainly are there as everybody in this group today to be a resource to make that happen.
Very good. Any other suggestions?
I would just say, don't be afraid or nervous to start. I find that a lot of times people will avoid talking about Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. No one wants to say or hear the A word, things of that nature. But certainly once you bring it to light, once you open up the doors to the conversation, you might be surprised at how many people, even in your own congregation, are facing this silently on their own. So by opening the door to have the conversation, in that to gain support, to maybe become a bit more inclusive in that area, I think it's a beautiful thing. So just don't be afraid to start, to say the words, and the support will be there.
Thank you. Any other suggestions?
I think it's important to reach out to community providers. Here in the Capital Region, we have a strong network of aging services providers, and we know each other, we work together. So don't hesitate to partner with people that are outside the faith community if need be, because we're a community together, whether we're from an ecumenical perspective, whether we believe or not, whatever a person's particular stance is. We're a community. We take care of our caregivers. We take care of people with Alzheimer's disease and other dementias. So don't be afraid to reach out to community providers.
Definitely, absolutely. Last, Pastor Karen, any suggestions for other churches who might want to host a similar event?
Just do it.
Very good. Well, thank you. And I want to underscore what Mary said. We could not have done this any one organization alone. We did this in partnership. So my thanks to Delmar Presbyterian, not only for hosting this event, but your church has a history of hosting ecumenical events. And so when people saw where it was being located, there were many who already knew that's a safe place. I've been there. I can go there. Our thanks to the Alzheimer's Association. As Gwen mentioned earlier, if you're looking for information, education, support related to any form of dementia, they have a 24-hour helpline, 800-272-3900, or you can go to the webpage, alz.org. My thanks also to the Albany Guardian Society. They provide a whole array of educational programs and materials related to senior issues in the area. Their phone number on the screen is 518-434-2140, and their web address is albanyguardiansociety.org. And then finally, if you want to be aware of any ecumenical events in our area or have an idea of how churches can work together, reach out to Bruce, the Capital Area Council of Churches. Their phone number, 518-462-5450, and their web address is capareacc.org. So thank you very much. If you have any questions on how you might replicate this in your area, your church, call the Council of Churches. I'd be glad to visit with you. Thank you.